What if everything you touch today, from your morning coffee maker to your country's missile defense system, could be switched off by one tiny island you can barely spot on a map? Because more than 90% of the world's most advanced microchips are manufactured in Taiwan, that island now sits at the center of the biggest tech power struggle in history. Stay with me because in the next few minutes you'll see how a sliver of silicon became a silicon shield, why armies and earthquakes alike could tip the global economy into chaos, and what happens next. The invisible empire. You and I, we live inside an invisible empire. It doesn't have borders or flags, but it powers nearly every single thing we do. It's an empire of logic and electricity, and its foundation is the semiconductor, the microchip. Seriously, think about it. The phone in your hand, the car you'll drive home, the servers making this video possible, the AI that's reshaping our future, none of it exists without these tiny, impossibly complex bits of silicon. They are the brains of modern life. Forget oil. In the 21st century, chips are what really matter. We just expect it all to work. We press a button and the world lights up. But we almost never ask where that magic comes from. We don't think about the fact that our entire digital civilization relies on a supply chain so fragile, so concentrated, that it's one of the biggest strategic risks in modern history. And to get why, you have to understand one simple, frankly terrifying fact: the single point of failure. So much of our modern world is built in one place. That place is Taiwan. When a company like Apple or Nvidia designs a new world-changing chip, they don't usually build it themselves. They hire a specialist, a foundry, to do the manufacturing. And Taiwan absolutely dominates the global foundry market, making over 60% of the world's contract manufactured chips. But here's the truly mind-boggling stat. When you look at the most advanced chips, the ones under 7 nanometers that power AI, supercomputers, and next-generation military hardware, Taiwan's share jumps to over 90%. Let that sink in. 90% of the engine for all future innovation is made on a single island. One company is at the heart of this: Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC. As of early 2025, TSMC by itself controls around 68% of the entire global foundry market. Its closest rival, Samsung, has a market share of less than 8%. This isn't just market leadership, it's a chokehold on the future. All the big names, Apple, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, they're the architects, but TSMC is the master builder for all of them. This creates a terrifying single point of failure. A major earthquake, a crippling drought, or an act of war against this one island could send the global economy into a tailspin, bringing production lines to their knees almost overnight. So how on earth did this small island, which lives under a constant shadow of invasion, make itself so indispensable that the world can't live without it?
The message coming out of China is getting louder by the day.
According to Beijing, this is actually part of China.
War with China. The countdown may be on.
The conflict between China and Taiwan is a complex and long-standing issue that involves historical, political, and cultural factors. China and Taiwan are both part of the same cultural and ethnic group, the Han Chinese, who have a history of more than 4,000 years. However, they have been separated by different political regimes since the end of the Chinese Civil War in 1949, when the Communist Party of China, also known as the CPC, took control of mainland China, and the Kuomintang, or KMT, retreated to Taiwan. The CPC claims that Taiwan is a renegade province that belongs to China and must be reunified by force.
The rise of a titan, the TSMC story. This didn't happen by chance. It was a masterstroke of strategy that started decades ago. Back in the 1970s, Taiwan's government realized it couldn't compete in traditional industries, so it made a huge bet on the future: electronics. It poured state funds into science parks and, more importantly, into educating a generation of world-class engineers. The real game changer, though, came in 1987 with the founding of TSMC by a man named Morris Chang. Chang, a veteran of Texas Instruments, came up with a business model that would completely reshape the tech world: the pure play foundry. See, before TSMC, companies like Intel did everything. They designed and manufactured their own chips, a process that was incredibly expensive and risky. Chang's idea was radical and frankly genius. What if a company did only the manufacturing? What if it never designed its own chips, but focused on being the best possible builder for anyone who needed a chip made? This unlocked a wave of innovation. It freed up hundreds of fabless design companies like Nvidia and Qualcomm to focus all their energy on dreaming up faster, better chips without having to burn billions building their own factories. They handled the blueprints. TSMC handled the construction. And TSMC got unbelievably good at construction. They poured every resource into perfecting the manufacturing process, achieving a level of quality and efficiency nobody else could touch. This fanatical focus is how they stayed one step ahead, pioneering smaller and more powerful chips year after year. This business model didn't just build a trillion-dollar company, it created an entirely new form of geopolitical power. We're going to break down exactly how that power works, but first, if you're getting some value from this, do us a quick favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. It genuinely helps us keep digging into these complex stories that shape our world. The Silicon Shield. Taiwan's absolute dominance in chip-making has handed it a unique and powerful defense strategy, the Silicon Shield. The logic is brutally simple. Taiwan is so critical to the global tech supply chain that any military attack on the island would be an act of economic self-destruction for the entire world, including the attacker. If Taiwan's fabrication plants, or fabs, were to go offline, the production of everything from iPhones to F-35 fighter jets would screech to a halt. The global economy would face a crisis on a scale not seen in generations. This makes the cost of an invasion almost unimaginably high for any country, including China, which remains deeply dependent on Taiwanese chips for its own tech industry. This dependency gives Taiwan incredible geopolitical leverage. The United States, Europe, and Japan are all forced to care about Taiwan's security, not just for ideological reasons, but for their own economic survival. They can't afford to let it fall. The island has brilliantly turned its greatest weakness, its size and location, into its greatest strength. It has made itself too important to fail.
For decades, the relationship between China and Taiwan has been tense and complex. China claims Taiwan as part of its territory and has not ruled out the use of force to achieve reunification. Taiwan, on the other hand, considers itself a sovereign state and has resisted China's pressure and interference. Many observers fear that a conflict over Taiwan could trigger a major war in the Asia-Pacific region involving not only China and Taiwan, but many other nations who support Taiwan's democracy. However, one army general has recently shared her insights, and she believes China will never invade Taiwan despite its rhetoric and threats. She has revealed some of the obvious reasons that make a military invasion of Taiwan a very unlikely and risky scenario for China. However, there are some people who have called China's bluff and believe that China will not invade Taiwan. Some experts and commentators have cast doubts on China's willingness and readiness to launch a full-scale war against Taiwan and have suggested that China's aggressive rhetoric and actions are mainly aimed at achieving domestic political and strategic objectives. They argue that China is not confident or capable of winning a quick and decisive victory over Taiwan and that it is aware of the high cost and risk involved in such a conflict. One of the most vocal and influential voices that challenges China's bluff and stands up to China's pressure is Taiwan's own president, Tsai Ing-wen. Tsai is the leader of the Democratic Progressive Party. In a recent interview at the New York Times Deal Book Summit, Tsai gave a confident and defiant assessment of China's intentions and capabilities and explained why she believes that China is unlikely to attempt an invasion of Taiwan anytime soon. Tsai said that China is facing too many internal problems that demand its attention and resources, and that these problems have overwhelmed the Chinese leadership and reduced its appetite and ability for external. Said that China is not sure of its ability to sustain a long-term conflict with Taiwan, given the geographical, logistical, and technological challenges that it would face. She said that Taiwan has a strong and modern military backed by the United States and other allies that can defend itself against any Chinese attack. She also said that Taiwan has a resilient and democratic society that can resist any Chinese pressure or propaganda. In her own words, "My thought is perhaps this is not a time for them to consider a major invasion of Taiwan, largely because of the economic, financial, and political challenges, but also because the international community has made it loud and clear that war is not an option."
The geopolitical chess match. This silicon shield is now at the very center of the defining struggle of our era, the tech Cold War between the US and China. For China, becoming technologically self-sufficient is a core national goal. But it has a massive problem. It simply can't produce the most advanced chips at scale. Despite pouring billions into its own foundries like SMIC, it remains years behind TSMC, slowed by international sanctions that prevent it from getting the most advanced manufacturing equipment. This makes Taiwan both a strategic prize and a deep source of frustration for Beijing. Meanwhile, the US has woken up to its own dangerous dependency. The CHIPS Act is a direct result of this anxiety, funneling billions of dollars into building new semiconductor fabs on American soil. TSMC itself is building new cutting-edge plants in Arizona, a move prompted by immense geopolitical pressure. But nobody thinks this is a quick fix. Experts agree it will take at least a decade, if not longer, for the US or Europe to even come close to matching Taiwan's efficiency and technological lead. For the foreseeable future, the world's reliance on this one island continues. Taiwan sits at the center of this chessboard, using its silicon shield to deter aggression, while locking in its economic future with its democratic allies. The hidden costs and future risks. But for all its power, the silicon shield isn't unbreakable. This incredible concentration of manufacturing in one place creates enormous risks. The island sits in an active earthquake zone, and the chip-making process demands staggering amounts of fresh water and electricity, resources that are under increasing strain. On top of that, Taiwan is facing a looming talent shortage, struggling to find enough highly skilled engineers to maintain its edge. And all the while, the industry is a prime target for industrial espionage and cyber attacks, as rivals try to steal the secrets that made Taiwan a titan. If the shield were to ever crack, whether from a natural disaster, a resource crisis, or a war, the fallout would be catastrophic. We'd risk being thrown into a kind of technological dark age that could take the world years to recover from. Now that you know how Taiwan's silicon shield quietly powers everything from your phone to global security, you're going to need to understand the brewing AI arms race that could punch holes straight through that shield. Because if you don't, the next supply chain meltdown could freeze innovation, crash markets, and blindside your wallet overnight. Which I'll tell you all about right here, so click on the next video and let's dive in.